Greetings to my fellow ambassadors out there. How y'all doing today? Happy Wednesday. Yay, we halfway there. A lot of us was off on Monday, so now we're in a short week. Before you know it now, it'll be Thursday. Thank God for keeping us alive to see another blessed day. My name is Pastor Plowden, the pastor of the Baptist Jesus Christ Church. I abide at the temple of the Church of God. I'm everybody's pastor. My loving wife is also my queen. I thank her for blessing us to be able to tune in, you guys to tune in on YouTube again this week. You know, it's a lot of evil things going on in our world and our society. Our children Satan don't have no mercy on them and nobody else. So continue to keep our children in prayer, our teachers, our parents, our families, our brethren, our neighbors, you know, our fellow man, our government, you know, everybody, continue to keep everybody in prayer. We had a guy, we got a red alert. My lovely wife received a red alert on yesterday. One of our elderly men, African-American man, elderly, walked off from the nursing home or his home on yesterday. Just pray that they will find and locate him being alive. You know, so there's a lot going on in our society. Satan is busy. He's picked up the pace. Let us not so focus on what's going on in the world. Let us focus and listen for the trumpet to sound. The return of Jesus Christ. That's what we need to be praying every day, every night. Every time we get a chance, as we pray and meditate during the day, and let's take the time out to ask God to please, Lord, let thy kingdom come, let thy will be done, to bring peace on earth, and grab hold of the old dragon, Satan of old, and destroy him and his evil followers and servants once and for all. That way that the world will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea, and our children one day be able to play in the streets again along with our elderly. In the book of Zechariah tells us, and there won't be about no cars running them over or anything like that. You know, there will be no more sickness, no more disease, no more death, none of that anymore, no more gun violence. You know, none of that stuff, no more man's government. We were taking over God's government. We rule again. We rule once and for all. So, but right now we're going to talk about, to kind of sum up our, how to have a healthy and happy marriage series up tonight. And we're going to talk about Ruth and Moab, love marriage relationship, match made up in heaven. We're going to talk about that tonight in the book of Ruth tonight. And my introduction to that, the subject on the Ruth and Moab love marriage relationship match made up in heaven. Ruth and her aunt Naomi, they were Benjamin women, part of the tribe of Israel. They had to flee out of Benjamin, escape the tribes before they got destroyed. Before the Israel people were destroyed, so they fled. The women, they fled from there. Some of the Benjamin women in Naomi wives, Naomi's women, they lost their husbands to the war, their protectors through the war, and they provided their husband in battle. In war, they lost their husbands. For in those days, there were no kings in Israel. Every man did what was right in their own eyes. Every man did what was right in their own eyesight, just like us today. We don't really have many kings in the homes. You get there later. We have men now that's in the home that are married or, living with women now, and women live with men or what have you. That's not married, of course, opposite sex, man and woman. We're talking about they lost sight. They don't care about what's right or what's wrong anymore. You don't have many kings in the home like myself. And the other brethren are kings in their homes. Back then, like now, we don't have as many. They do whatever they please. Most men in marriages now do whatever they please in their marriages. Now it leads us to the love story of Ruth and Moab, and the Moabite women. They were doubly trouble. Even during that time. They was also connected with the Benjamin women, the Moabites women. They were double trouble. In the Hebrew Bible. They were both foreigners. They were foreigners, female foreigners. They oppose problems of identity, bad influence on the other women in the Benjamin women. We have Moab. The Moabites were perpetual enemy of Israelites, God's chosen people. Even some Moabite women in our day and time. When we live in now, we have them in the churches. We have them in our schools. We have them in our community, neighborhoods. We even have some Moabite women in our family, among our family members. The perpetual women. Enemies of us. Now our women now, bad influence on some of our women now. I don't think that it's healthy for a married woman to hang out with single women. I don't think it's healthy because it can influence them in a bad way. Perpetual them in a bad way. Make enemies. They're really enemies. Really, you have to be careful that married women should hang out with Moabite women's nowadays, like they did back in Naomi day and Ruth's day. They were trying to break up a happy marriage, a happy home. Back to the story, Ruth is a common story of love, of devotion, and redemption set in dark context of the days of Judges. It is a story of Moabite women who forsake her pagan heritage in order to cling to the people of Israel, to God of Israel, because of her faithfulness, Ruth's faithfulness, in a time of national Boaz, a son of Obi. I'll talk about that more as we get into the story. In a privileged position in the lineage of David and Christ, and such. She is actually Ruth is actually the grandmother of David, great grandmother of David. Ruth is a Hebrew title of this book. Its name means friendship, association. We all are associated with somebody. We all are a friendship, hopefully, with someone. and as the name of the title entitles the book of Ruth, you know, a route, R-O-U-T-H, the Greek equivity of the Hebrew name, Latin name, title Ruth, with translation of route. You know, she was routed to where she's in the story to Boaz. You know, she was routed to him. She were Christ led them two together. And we'll pick up in verse 11. It talks about Naomi talks about we pick up in Moab, Ruth chapter 1, with the love story. We talks about Naomi, verse 11. Her daughters brought them together. She brought her daughters together, telling them to look. I have to go. I'm old. I can't have any children. I'm too old to have a husband. She was telling her young daughters, I can't bear children. And so the girls stayed there at home, you know, while she went out to Moab country, the town, so that she can work and to provide bread for the family. So she had them go back to the house. In verse 8, in verse 12, it talks about how she turned again by her daughters, go your way. I am old, I have no husband, you know. I hope I have no husband. I can't bear a son, I can't bear any kid. 13 will tarry to them till they grow up. You know, I'll be with them till they grow up, the daughters, her daughters. Will try to stay to them from having husbands. So in verse 15 it says, and she said, behold, our sister-in-law is gone back unto her people, unto the gods, and returned to after her sister-in-law. And so in Ruth, verse 16, it said, Ruth said in threat, me not leave thee, or I return from following after thee. So Ruth, Naomi, chapter 2, actually, in verse 1, she knew that Naomi knew that she had a wealthy kinsman that was related to her. She knew that through her husband, which name was Boaz. And Elimelech man, king, Naomi knew, remember early in the story, her husband, Elimelech, was king, you know, and he had kin. He got killed. He was king and killed in the battle, you know. And then so in verse 2 and verse 5, to verse 5, that's what I said, verse 2 to verse 5 said, Ruth, the Amalekites, Moabites said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and clean ears of corn after him, whom sought I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after reapers, and height was a light on a part of the field belonging to Boaz, and who was a kindred of Amalek. So in verse 4 in chapter 2, and behold, Boaz came from Benjamin, Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, Lord bless thee. And so it reads here that the name Boaz is a play. It means play. He was playful. He seemed delightful. He was a lightful guy. Lightful man. He had childlike friendliness. He talks about in verse 19. I think it's 19. Ruth, mother-in-law, told her, "Blessed be Boaz, notice you," and Naomi talks about. So let's start up in the relationship when it begins here in verse 10 in chapter 2. It says in verse 8. It said, "Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not thy daughters, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens." So in other words, what Boaz was saying, don't, I want you working with my daughters. I want you to work closer to my maidens, my maids. It said, "Let thy eyes be on the field, that thou do reap and go through after them, having not charged a young man that they shall not touch thee," because he don't want the young man, nobody touching her. So like my wife, I want no other man touching her. So that they shall not touch thee, and when thou art artress or thirsty, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young man hath drawn. Then she fell on her face and bowed down. This was Ruth did. Bowed down to Boaz and said unto him, "Why hast thou found grace in thy eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge in me, seeing me as a stranger?" In other words, brother, check this out. When God seen your mate, you would know it, sister. You would know it. You would know it. To both of your spirit would click, and you would know it. And so, in verse 11, it said, "Boaz answered and said to her, He had fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law." See, men that's contemplating getting married and those that are married, you want to make sure that the woman that you're pursuing, that she has some attributes and some things in common like your mother does. My wife have a lot of things, similarities that my mother does. And so that's what he meant when Boaz was telling Ruth in verse 11, and he answered unto her, "It has fully been shown me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thy husband." She served her, worked beside her, and took her, but picked up her ways, her serving ways, that Naomi had for her husband, and so into that, and how that thou hast left thy father and mother in the land of thy native, and art come unto the people which thou knowest thereof. See, so you would know your mate and make sure that she has some similarities, that some qualities, wife qualities that your mother has. I thank God that my wife, I know for a fact, besides my mother, that she has her mother ways, and serving ways, and caring ways, cooking, cleaning, everything else, serving, giving, to her husband. In verse 19, and it says, "And her mother-in-law said unto her," come out, Naomi said unto Ruth, "Where hast thou gleaned today? And where wouldst thou blessed be he that did the knowledge of thee?" In other words, she noticed that where she was gleaning at and working at and serving in the field, that she noticed that she was being washed and being blessed, acknowledged that she was being blessed of what she was doing and how she was serving and working in the fields. How Boaz noticed her, and Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be ye of the Lord, who hath thou not left off his kindness in the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, to Ruth, The man is near of thy kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And so, in other words, verse 25, and let's just keep reading verse 21. And Ruth, the Moabites he said unto me also, Thou shalt keep fast by thy young men until they have ended all thy harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maids, that they may meet thee not in any other field. In other words, brethren, she was encouraging her, Ruth. Naomi was encouraging Ruth to make sure she stayed close to his maids, because she knew that they were meant for each other, Boaz and Ruth. So they want to keep them close. In verse 25, she said, Keep fast my maidens of Boaz, to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of the wheat harvest, and to dwell with her mother-in-law. So he told them to make sure that she stuck close together with them. And finally, in verse chapter 4 and verse 13, this is where actually Ruth and Moab love of Boaz love, marriage, relationship matched in heaven, came together in chapter 4, Ruth chapter 4 and 13. Listen, as we come to a close tonight. What a beautiful story if you just read it. Right now I'm just going through it, just briefly going through it, some sections and verses, right now. But if you read the story, it was tell the whole story, show how beauty of how God brought these two people together, hand in marriage relationship together, because we don't know when God's going to do it. We have to make sure that we make ourselves available for marriage. We have to make ourselves known. We can't just stay in the house, and don't go out to the store, don't go to church, or don't go to work, and go places where we can meet our mate. So Naomi followed her. Ruth followed her aunt Naomi, and she was led to be with to meet her mate Boaz. So in closing here's how the marriage of both Ruth and Boaz came together. Marriage relationship match made up in heaven came together beginning in chapter 4 of Ruth in verse 13. It says, So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. In verse 14, and the woman said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, a child, that as his name will be famous in Israel. In other words, this child, in verse 17, verse 16 it says, let's read the whole to 15 and 17 in closing. It says, and he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life. God is preparing to restore the kingdom of the children of Israel back unto him through for his kinship and kingship through in the coming of Christ through Boaz and Ruth's son. Watch this in verse 15. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of the life, and a nourisher of thy old age. For thy daughter-in-law which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, had borne him. In verse 16. And then Naomi took the child and laid it on her bosom and became the nurse unto it. And the woman her neighbors gave it a name, saying, there is a son born of Naomi. And they called the name Obed. O-B-E-D. And he is the father of Jesse, the father of David, and the grandfather of Jesus Christ. Ain't that beautiful? Ain't that beautiful? How that marriage, Ruth and Boaz love marriage relationship matched up in heaven. And I feel the same way with my wife and I. Our relationship, our marriage was matched up in heaven as well. Be encouraged, brethren. Remember that the family that prays together stays together. We must, the only way to have a healthy and happy marriage, and a marriage is made up in heaven, God has to be the center and the base of that marriage. You have to have a strong prayer life together as husband and wife become one flesh and one spirit. So be encouraged, brethren. We hope you got something out of the lessons throughout the last few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, and be encouraged. Now, another thing I want you to remember that God bless your marriage, your relationship with your spouse and with Him. God bless. Have a blessed rest of the week. Amen.